Good morning. Glad to get together with you. We just got a couple of more of these before the elections. Two things that we want to hit today. We want to talk about the reasons for a Christian to vote and also some of our local issues. I want to say at the outset that uh, many churches are set up with voting boxes you could drop your ballots in. We'll be having that here, at least on our last Sunday. One way or another, you need to vote. And you might say, well, we're in California, so the electoral votes is probably going to go blue. So why even vote? Well, there's a lot of other things to vote for, but the fact is, if every Christian in that is registered in this state would vote, we would not have a Democratic government in our. We would have a Republican government in our state. So there's just a lot of inaction. I want to call it laziness, but I'm trying to be kinder, a little kinder
Yeah.
than that. But that's kind
Well,
of what we see
I,
happening.
I I think it is laziness because the stat that we saw yesterday in a video was out of a congregation in church in California, usually 30% of the congregation is registered to vote, and out of that 30%, only 55 actually vote, meaning that all of the Christians in the California, there's about 15 to 18% that actually vote every
Yeah.
year. So
And so
that,
we're giving it away.
yeah.
We're giving it away. And so with that, somebody produced a really nice thing called 10 Reasons for Christians to Vote. We're going to run through that real quick, and we're going to run through some of our propositions also and give you a little heads up. But first of all, let's hit these reasons for a Christian to vote. You have a copy of this too? Okay. So the first one that they bring out is that each vote does make a difference. It's it's cumulative. And so, we're called to be salt and light, and we can't pick and choose how to be salt and light. We have to be salt and light all the time. So it's cumulative. So they rack up. Don't think that your vote doesn't count, because it does. Because I think the great lie is to just stop you from participating. Is it moral to vote? Well, we'll talk about that too.
Yeah. Every vote counts. It doesn't matter if you think it doesn't, because it does.
Yeah, amen. The next one is that it as we vote, it recognizes the equality of all citizens. We're a
Yes.
unique country. We're a democratic republic, and we have there's nobody that's excluded from voting by race, creed, or religion in our country. And it's so important for us to understand that. And it's a chance, therefore, um, for not only to vote for what we need, but also we have other, maybe ethnic groups or groups that have been held down for a long time, that have come to America, and they have that right to participate. And as we vote, we recognize their right, and we
Yeah.
provide for them that opportunity.
Yeah, we kind of hit this when we went over Israel, how Israel's the
Mhm.
only country in their region that lets all Jews, Arabs, all women vote. Everybody has a say in their country who's a citizen, and it's the exact same thing with us. So,
And I think a lot of people don't realize that in the entire world, those are the two freest states, the United States and in Israel,
yeah.
that do that. That most countries, a lot of women can't vote, and a lot of countries, nobody can vote.
And a big part of why those two, like the United States and Israel, they're the leaders in innovation and technology.
Yeah.
Elon Musk came here and he's actually done a lot of things here. Like, it's because we have a free society and we all have a say and we all vote. We all come together. That actually allows for a freedom for technology, for advancement, and just for everybody to be equal in our society.
Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't other countries that you can vote in. There are some, England, some of the other ones you can vote in, but especially if you step off the page to the Asia, or if you step the other way over to the Mid East, you find that these are kind of oases, so to speak.
Yeah.
Also, voting is a privilege for our free nation, and that's kind of what we're talking about right here. We
Yes.
can take things for granted, but it's amazing to me. There are so many countries today that if they could vote, everybody would vote, because
Yes.
nobody can vote in those.
Yes.
And we have it here, and I'm afraid that um, we're lazy, or we're preoccupied, or something, but we're not taking advantage of it. And I don't want it to be too late.
I think maybe it's just a complacency, because you see that with Christians, when persecution comes on a nation, all of a sudden the church seems to catch fire, and people who are there because they love Jesus, not because they're part of a club. and the other people have just gotten complacency. Maybe, you know, they love Jesus, but they're just complacent. And it's the same thing with voting. Through all these years, it seems like there's so many people just complacent with, well, we've been here for 240 something years. We're going to be fine. You know, I don't need to vote. My
Yeah.
vote doesn't matter. And that's the total opposite. When everybody adopts that mindset, then that means that our country's going downhill fast.
I think it goes along with the statement I think we brought up a couple of weeks ago that kind of hit me, that in our country, um, um, the Christians who go to church sang probably 500 hymns or worship songs last year, but didn't lead anybody to Christ.
Yeah.
That's the typical Christian.
Yeah.
So something's wrong with us. We just need a reevaluation of that.
Yeah.
Also, we're told in Romans 13:1 to submit to the authorities, but we have this unique ability to choose the authorities here.
Yes.
We're not in a communist regime where we're under the thumb of an oppressive regime that we have no say so in. We can vote the kind of president or senator or governor or local representative that we most closely align with, and so I think it promotes the correct biblical standard because we're able to vote in the
Yes.
biblical standard. And there are a lot of good Christians that are running for offices too.
Yeah, yeah, it's important because we get to choose, we get to elect, and if somebody doesn't agree with what the Bible says, as Christians, we now have a chance to go and to endorse and to vote for somebody who believes the Bible, who values the Bible.
And people will question, like for example with Trump, they'll say, well, is he a Christian? Well, I don't know if he's a Christian or not, but I know that he aligns far closer and has a great respect for Christians and for God and for the Bible, as opposed to so many on the left who wantonly disobey the things like abortion and so many other things. There's a great quote that most people have heard by Edmund Burke. All that is required for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing.
Yes.
I think we've all heard that.
Yes.
So, but non-voting is a form of voting.
Yes.
It's simply not taking advantage of what we do have. I think we all get irked at, you don't have kids yet, you're not married yet, Micah, but we all get irked at our kids or whatever when we see that, maybe we've gotten them a car and they just kind of let it fall apart. Not every kid does that. I understand that, but as a parent, you're thinking, well, man, when I was a kid, if I had that, I would take such good care of it. I think we've come to the point of not appreciating what we have, and so when we don't vote, it's a form of voting. When we're just not taking care of something that's being given to us.
We see kind of a parallel with when Nazi Germany were taking Jews, and the church, instead of stepping up, they just played their music louder so they didn't have to hear what was going on the outside.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when you don't vote, you're kind of just neglecting the issues, and you're saying, maybe I don't want to spend the time, or I don't know, I don't understand things, I'm not informed, or whatever the case, I just don't want to be a part of these. So you kind of just put the music louder and you don't want to hear what's going on, and you're just neglecting the fact that no matter what, we live here, we're citizens, and we're still going to be in history as like, hey, I lived then and I was a part of that and I could have made a difference, and maybe I didn't.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Hindsight's 20/20, they say, and it's not always a pleasant thing, is it?
Yeah.
Also, when we vote, it's one way to obey God's command to seek the good for everybody else, as well as protecting our nation. When we can't just even think about ourselves or even just California, or maybe even just America, because we affect the whole world. We're, the greatest nation on the face of the earth. We're the greatest defender of the weak. And if, there are definite policies that are on the ticket today. How we will deal with Israel is on the ticket. How we will deal with the other Mideast countries is on the ticket. How we will interact with China or Korea, North Korea, or Russia or Iran, the manner in which we will handle that is on the ticket.
Yes.
So you have to think about, what do you believe, and how do you want that handled? And do you want it handled with a weak hand or a strong hand? Personally, I thought when we had President Trump voted in 2016, he showed us 4 years of having a strong military and a strong hand, and so we didn't get into any wars because we could carry about with like a strong dad in the home, not overbearing, but a strong dad. And I think that we have seen in the last 4 years the opposite of that, and so we have things kind of coming apart at the seams, and it endangers other nations by doing that too.
Yeah.
Like Israel has been left, now they've got, I think what I hear, they got this last year, got over 20,000 missiles lobbed into their country this last year. And this year so far, and the year's not over yet. And that stuff just didn't happen under the strong-handed help of the United States. And there are other countries that are affected the same way by us.
That's like 6 or 7 missiles a day.
Yeah.
That's insane. And they
Try to
don't
cut
have
down on it.
they don't have like vast areas of land where it's like, oh, this is nowhere. Like they don't have from California to New York and there's a big stretch of
No.
land where there's like they're pretty
The Iron
dense.
Dome has been effective, and the ships that we have off there have been shooting down those things. I believe it's God's hand of provision.
Yes.
But I'm simply saying the way that we deal with the way we deal with things, setting policy and being able to enforce that policy, I think protects millions of lives by doing it
And
outside of our
as a
country.
Christian, we have the answer to all of the world's problems.
The Bible tells us also in 1 Timothy that we're to care about our leaders, we're to pray for our leaders. And another way we do that is to pray, is to vote for them. Voting doesn't exclude praying, but it should go hand in hand with it, because God has given us this free democracy. We need to go hand in hand with it. I think everybody's a little bit tired of what they've been seeing the last year, lawfare and things like that. We've never seen anything quite like that before. And if we don't want that kind of stuff to go on, you're going to have to make a change. There's just no other answer to it. So I think we vote to make that change.
Yeah, God's placed us here for a reason, for a purpose. And like the Bible says, faith without action is dead. It's that we can cry out to God, we can have faith for Him to do something great. But if I don't actually have any leading and say, okay, God, I'm going to follow what you're saying, what you're doing, and I'm going to vote, and I'm going to make a difference, and I have a purpose in this life, then it's kind of like, what are we doing? Faith without action is dead.
Amen.
There's no difference made in my life. So there should be an action. There should be voting.
Amen. I was reading Joshua this morning, and it was talking about how Joshua came into the battles he had to fight, and God holding the sun still, the phrasing that he uses in there. But I realize with them that God was telling them as he went there that they had to scrape out the people who would not receive God, Jehovah, get rid of the pagan practices because they were doing so much damage. And I've preached about this many times, the horrific things that they would do, and the things they would do with their children and such. We're seeing terrible things in our country. We have 300,000 migrant children that we are unaccounted for, came across as kids, and they're gone. And there's so many in sex slavery. You see these things. Some of these things are being caught already in these rings and things. If we don't want those kind of policies, if we're like God instructing Joshua going in, if we want to scrape out of our country the nonsense, the sexual abuse, the child labor, and whatever else. In our 2 weeks ago in our state, 2 or 3 weeks ago, our Democratic state Senate put out a bill, and the representative from Irvine put it up there, and it went. Of course, everything passes through because it's all Democratic, because we're not voting Republicans in, and our governor Newsom signed it, that it is now illegal in this state to question the idea or even ask for the idea of anybody coming to vote. Well, that's nefarious in the very thought of why they would do that. But that goes to the point of it, is that if we were to care about our leaders, but also in this simple, significant way of voting, we're doing something about that. We have a chance to put some people in there that can say, wait a minute, that's not a great idea, and not get that kind of thing passed. I think I brought out one of the earlier podcasts, actually it's live stream, I used to throw that on a podcast that we're doing here, that when our governor came up for they challenged it, and Larry Elder went up against him in a midterm run, our special election. It's amazing. Larry Elder was pretty much an unknown. People who listen to conservative radio or TV, they don't know who he is, but a lot of that people don't. And yet, the exit polls showed that it was only 4% difference between the two of them in the vote. If Christians had just gone out, a little more than the 15 to 18% that actually go out and vote as registered voters, if they'd have just went out, if half or even a third of the Christians had gone out, we would have different policies. That policy that came up 3 weeks ago would not have gotten signed. We would have had a Republican in there. So I think it counts a lot, and we need to be really up on that.
Yeah.
Also, voting is a biblical procedure. We see it in Acts 14 when they voted for elders in the church. It's biblical. Just because many countries don't have it doesn't mean it's not biblical. And we say, well, where do we find that in the Old Testament? Well, you really don't, because everything's changed. You have to understand, America is unique, but America started off as a very godly country. Our Constitution and our Bill of Rights was written by godly men. 8 of them were pastors, and many of them gave their lives for it. And they prayed for 3 days writing the Constitution, and so much went into it. And it's a biblical thing that we have here. It's a godly thing that we have here. We need to use it correctly. The only people that are winning are the people who are on the other side, who are ungodly, and they're trying to get freedoms to sin, to bring sin into our world, and to have more freedoms to do terrible things that we know will destroy a nation.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah. And finally, voting is a part of the stewardship we have. We're often told that we have God has given us so much, and we're to take our time, talents, and treasures and give them to the Lord. And I think that's just a part of our stewardship. God has given us, with all of this, the uniqueness of being born in America. And I can't speak for other countries here. I can only speak for us. We were born, and we were in Esther last night for such a time as this. And we are who we are. We are where we are in America, and we are in the circumstances that God has put us in for a purpose.
Yes.
And I believe that this is a chance for especially Christians to rise up and say, you know what, we are tired of the injustices. Let's make a difference. Let's get people, not only in the presidency, but local governments, school boards. We're tired of the things they've been doing with our kids in the schools. Let's get people that are godly in there, people who seek right in there. Change policies. You're protecting children all over the country. You're protecting people all over the country. You're protecting the ethnic groups. If we, as true American Democrats, in the sense I'm a Republican, but we're all democratic in that sense, will rise up and say, no, we choose to make our vote count for good. Yeah. I think that's what we need to be doing.
Yeah, and I would argue that the local issues and the local people that we place in office is just as important, if not more important, than the president. Because like when we had COVID and everything shut down, we found out later that we wouldn't have been prosecuted in California if we opened our doors in church and if we never closed. And that's because of the police. They wouldn't have come after us. And so having those local, for school boards and for our police and for our senators and all of that in place is just as important as who runs the presidency.
That's right. Yeah, it's definitely a two-paddled thing between local government and national government. So, I just think that the issues are important. You can go online. You can find 10 reasons for Christians to vote. If you just look, you'll probably find it. It'll review back the same kind of things that we're talking about. We'll take a few minutes to go through some of the propositions.
Yes, yeah. So that was our reasons why, and these are the local politics. So Proposition 2, we are encouraging you to say no. And what this does is you borrow $10 billion to help fund schools. And that sounds nice. It really does. Like I want schools to be better. But when you do the math, the average cost coming out of your pocket every year will be $470. And the average money that will go to schools, like every school in California on average would receive $1,724 per school. What can you do for $1,000? Exactly.
You can't even open the doors for one day.
Instead of saying yes and giving $10 billion, which will actually become, after interest, $17 billion, instead of just giving the government more money, even though we already give them $220 billion every year annually, we should take a hands-on approach as Christians. We should get involved. We should volunteer. We should donate to our schools. If you're a local business person, did you know that you can actually have advertisement that you pay the school to advertise for you with banners and things that the money actually goes towards the school? So we can do all of these things to get involved rather than just throwing money at the issues and not solving the problems.
Yeah, and a lot of that money goes into the school boards, not just the boards, but the unions. And the unions have become very liberal, and so they push their agenda, and then they take some of that money and they lobby with it. Our biggest problem in our schools is not the condition of the buildings. I mean, some of our greatest population was raised up in a one-room schoolhouse that was a church also, and they came out fine.
Yeah.
That's not the issue. What they're teaching in the schools is what bothers me the
Yes.
most.
Yes.
So we need to be cognizant of that.
Yes. Proposition 3, we would say no. And what this does is this changes our state constitution. I did not know this. I thought that, according to our state constitution, I thought that a gay marriage was legal. I found out that it's actually not, according to the state constitution. And what this would do is this would change the wording and take out gender from our state constitution, the California one, that right now it quotes, marriage is only between a man and a woman. Now, if you think that doesn't matter, first off, as a Christian, the Bible is very clear, but beyond that, this goes to a very extreme. It doesn't just say like, oh, now gay marriage is allowed. The extreme part of this is that children and incest and polygamy would all actually be legal because they're taking all of the specifics out of marriage. So in California, that would now be legal for us to have.
The last big push of this was several years ago under Proposition 8, and all of these issues were coming up then. And so, Proposition 8 was something we won, and yet we didn't win because they're back at it again. But they're using subtle language now.
Yes.
So don't be deceived. It's a really deceptive way that it's written. So I would say the same thing on Proposition 2. I would not do it at all.
Yeah. Okay. Next one would be Proposition 4, and we're saying no on Prop 4. What this does is it gives $10 billion, again, $10 billion, drinking water, fire protection, all of that kind of stuff. And again, it sounds nice. It really does. But it does not get to the root of the issue. Did you know that California lets 80% of the rainwater go back into the ocean?
We've seen this for all of my life. And they have so many opportunities. And by the way, about that, several things have been up on the board in California, especially Southern California, where there's more dryness right there, for catching this stuff and then going through the purification. And it has been hung up in building permit failures for over 40 years now. So you're going to give the money, but it's going to go nowhere. This is what we're up against. I've also traveled a lot in this world, and the cleanest water in the world is right here. And you know where the second cleanest spot is in the world? Israel. You drink out of the tap at both places.
Yes.
But you get filtered water here, or you put a filter on your system, or whatever you want to do. But giving the government more money to do nothing for the next 40 years, and not only that, your children and grandchildren will have to pay that bill. And mark my words, that same bill will come up again.
Yeah.
And then it'll be another billions of dollars,
And between Prop 2 and Prop 4, you'll spend about $1,000 more a year out of your paycheck. And not only that, but it will drive up inflation. It will drive up the cost of living. The standard of our living will go down because of this.
Right.
And none of this will help. We won't have more water. So instead of sending $10 billion to there, if we actually had things to help catch rainwater, then our water bill could be cut in half if we only added 20% more that we catch.
There's a lot of technologies as far as purifying saline. We got a whole ocean right off the coast right here. Got a whole ocean right there. And the technology is available. It should be enhanced and developed. I know I don't want to take super long with this, but for example, in the big floods they just had in North Carolina and those places right there, the Samaritan's Purse went in there and they put up these 3 instant plants for taking the water. It's so muddy you can't see anything, turning it absolutely pure for drinking. They're able to do 10,000 families a day off of each one of those 3 that they set up. The technology is here to do something with the water. If the government is not good with what they do with it, I'd say no.
Yeah.
Absolutely no. It's just going to be another waste of money the way they're doing it. Which kind of goes, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to go.
Well, it goes into the next one, number 5, the low income housing. Again, governments just say stay out of things. Yes. Every time they step in, it gets worse. And I know people who own houses, and so this is a problem for them because the government steps in. And we have people in our church who own houses that were renting out during the whole COVID thing. These people they went without getting paid because those people could not be evicted. Yet they had mortgage payments to pay on these houses themselves. It's stay out of it, government. Just stay out of it. Let the economy drive it.
Yeah, this would change. For us to vote, we need a 2/3 vote in order to change stuff like this. And this isn't even voting on that. This would change, instead of having 2/3, be 55%. And that's a huge difference
Yeah.
in voting.
Yeah.
And then also, if we were to say yes on this, instead of having a cap of 2% each year, that your property taxes can go higher, now that would be thrown out the window. So if somebody, let's say you have somebody and they rent a house, and now the government says, well, you're renting it too low, we need to raise your rent.
Yeah.
So now the person who's renting has to pay way more, and then when they look at how much you pay, they say, oh, now your property is worth more, so let's add 10% tax instead of 2. It's
long before you were
terrible.
ever hatched. When I was closer to your age, they came up with Proposition 13 here in California, which protected the amount that you would pay in
Yeah.
property taxes because it was getting out of control.
Yeah.
And so there's been an attack against that ever since. But they've already taken too many taxes. I look at our wasteful spending in our own state. So 3-4 years ago, we had a $90 billion surplus in our state. We are $70 billion in the hole now. So we've squandered all of that off of all the bad spendings. You and I just got back from Kentucky, which is considered a poor state. Some of the best roads I've ever been on. You
Yeah.
come to Hemet, you drive through California on the roads here, where all of our gas tax is supposed to be doing these things here. And it's just terrible because the terrible way that they mismanage the money they extract from us. I say no.
And it's not just a mismanagement. Like, we get 220 billion a year. The next closest is New York, and they get about half of what we get. Obviously, we have more people, but our tax rates are so much
Yeah.
higher.
Oh, yeah. We also have, with that tax rate, we have this extreme population of 40 million people in our state. So, the amount of money, the revenue that California takes in, and being broke,
Yeah.
and I won't even go into all the things they're spending it on that we don't agree with. Let's go ahead, go on.
All right, Prop 6, this eliminates involuntary servitude for incarcerated persons, meaning that if you go to jail, they can't make you do anything productive. So we were saying no on this because if you want somebody to get back into society, the best thing you can do is make them work and be a productive human being while they're locked up.
Yes.
When they get out of jail, now they're going to have ethics and working and hard work
And a skill, perhaps.
and skill.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. And just saying, hey, sit around and watch HBO all day, and that's just not cutting it.
Yeah.
It's not jail. That's better than being home sometimes for some people.
And it's free.
Yeah, free to them anyway.
So no on Prop 6. Next one, 32. Prop 32 would raise the minimum wage to $18 an hour. And last time I checked, I could remember when they were raising it to 15. And when they raised it past there, hasn't there been a ton of inflation?
Well, that's the whole thing. Yeah. So our kids that were flipping burgers for $10 an hour now making $20 an hour, and so they want to give raises to more people. Look at the nation. Look at what's happened. You've got to stop inflation now. Stop all of this stuff. Because all it does is it creates an artificial economy when you do that across the board. So it makes everything higher. So if you're getting $20 instead of $10 now, where 3 years ago you could get a decent apartment in this town for $1,300 a month, it's now $2,200 because that's where that went.
Yeah.
And because they said, well, you're making more money now, so your groceries can go up 34%, because now you make it. It just goes across the board. And all of a sudden, within 3 years, we're spending 35% or more money every year. We didn't get a 35% raise.
No.
A lot of people didn't get any raise.
And a lot of people believe that if we raise the minimum wage, that will actually cut the profits of the big corporations and it'll even it out, give a little more to the little guy. But what it actually does is people just get fired over this.
Yeah.
You don't get more. You actually have.
Yeah. How many places are you going to now? You got to go to a screen instead.
Yeah.
You don't have anybody take the order. You say, well, it's not showing up on the menu. What's being advertised? You go to try to find somebody at the counter desk. There's nobody there because you got to make your order over here. And so they're forcing this. They're forcing employees out. We're cutting down the workforce rate by putting in computers to try to cut that cost down. It's just out of control.
Yeah.
Where McDonald's is not supposed to be your lifelong dream.
Yeah.
It's your entry job to learn how to work. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Where is our incentive? If we don't teach this generation, incentive, where are we going to be a generation away from now? They've got to learn, hey, I could lose my job. Hey, I got to learn this to have my job. Hey, I could get more money if I do my job better. That's what's worked for so many years.
And the American dream's not dead. Elon
No.
Musk is from South Africa. We got plenty of people that are
Yeah.
the most awesome
They're bright.
innovators in
Yeah.
our country that aren't even from here or that have come from different countries. So it's not dead. We still have opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We just need to beat down this stuff. We need to get back to where we have an open free market. We have
Yes.
an open, uh, uh, free trade is a whole other subject, but we need to have the incentive based life that I was raised with, and you too, where we can advance,
Yeah.
and you can. And I don't know that college is your answer. I think if you need more training, I think trade schools are a good option as well. But there's a lot of options out there, but we're taking it away from the kids,
Yeah.
and I think this is really a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Proposition 33, we have no for this one. And what this does is rent control. And we kind of touched on this on a different prop, but just put it this way. If there's 10 houses and there's 10 families and they're all renting, if you want the best one, you're going to pay the highest. If you are the last one there and you get the worst house, you're going to pay the absolute lowest. So you're going to get a way lower, better deal, but it's a worse house. What the government wants to do is they say, this person pays too much, so let's lower it. This person pays too little, so let's hire that.
Yeah.
And let's have more taxes on top of that.
This is also thinly, guys. This is also a protection for a lot of the migrant housing issues that are coming up, and things like that. So, so if I own a duplex and I'm renting it out, all of a sudden I've got the government making choices for me, and I'm going to go broke in this process.
Yeah.
It's not right. It's just every time the government gets involved, there's a problem with it. Let free enterprise run. It's the same thing with cars and in technology. They're talking about EVs.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you just let the economy drive it?
Yeah.
If people want EVs, they can get EVs. If they don't want it, they shouldn't have to do it. And if we say we need to have more, well, let the people in the economy drive issues like that. And people should drive this issue also.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right, we finally got to a yes. Proposition 34 restricts nonprofit spending in politics. And this is if the government subsidizes you or gives you money, and then you use that revenue, which makes no sense because it's a nonprofit, but the revenue from the government that's giving you money, a lot of people are using that in politics for commercials and political gain. And so this would make them spend 98% of all revenue from a nonprofit that is from the government, and they would have to spend that on patients and healthcare and different things. It can't be spent on politics.
I like this because it's a yes vote to tell them, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Stay out of it. I like
odd.
that. It's one of the things I like about it.
Yeah. The only thing that scares me with this one is we are a nonprofit, and depending on how extreme they take this, if COVID happened again and we got subsidized, how much will the government get involved in the church as a nonprofit? And I know there's other laws that, the church and state, the separation of all that, but that is the only fear.
Yeah.
But it's a total extreme where COVID has to happen again. The government has to subsidize the church, and then they have to go against a few different laws. So it is kind of odd. So that's why we're
there's
saying
always
yes.
a danger. It's like we're encouraging people to vote in this election. Well, vote in the next one too.
Yeah.
Vote in the midterms. Vote in the
Yes.
local. We've got to be vigilant because we have not been vigilant. We've got a lot of things that we're playing cleanup with right now.
Yeah. So vote yes on that one.
Yeah.
All right. Prop 35, taxes to healthcare. Money would go to healthcare. It sounds nice, but it actually goes towards like Planned Parenthood and places like that.
And illegal immigrants.
Yes.
And so there's the moralistic issue on both of those.
Yes.
No, I don't know what's going to happen in 11 days or 12 days or whatever it is on the election. Of course, I'm voting for the Republican ticket. Something's got to be stopped on the whole migration thing because it is costing us trillions of dollars. It will cost us multiple trillions of dollars over time because it's bankrupting. It's like we've taken in 15. I know the different figures they give, but we've taken in conservatively 15 million people that we have to pay for everything.
Yeah.
And there are things that they're getting that, quite honestly, I didn't have insurance for years as a family. They're getting it right off the back.
Yeah.
They're giving them these debit cards. They're giving them the Roosevelt Hotel. I could never ever afford to go to a hotel like that in my life. It's taken over. It's completely migrant, and it's because government is paying for those things, so they're glad to rent out the whole place. The problem is, again, government. We're paying the government. We're giving them our money to do that. The whole thing is so out of whack.
Yeah.
No, we got to begin. One, You have to do it one piece at a time. Chip it down.
Yeah.
You say, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
You say, well, what about those poor people? Those poor people broke into the house of America. You want to come and live in America? We have an immigration system. Go back out the way it is supposed to be. You reside in the next closest. If it's one of those things where you're seeking amnesty, if you come from Venezuela, you're supposed to go to the next country toward this way, go to the embassy and start making your case. You don't even come to Mexico. You come, Mexico is your last stop before you ever come through here.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with that is by people breaking in, they're saying, okay, I'm here. Feed me. I'm here. House me. I'm here. I need some money. I need some spending money. Here, I'm here. I need a house. Give me a down payment. And they just bypassed and wiped out all the people that are waiting. And this is another one of the many bills saying that now we need to make sure that we have Medi-Cal for all of them. No, they need to go back out the door and yes, get in line and come in correctly. It isn't just the vetting, it's the stupidity of it. Can you imagine, Micah? I know your parents well. You imagine, a family coming up from some other country, and you go in the morning, and they're down in the living room. They just found their way in. You say, "How'd you get into this house?" Well, they broke a little window, got in, and unlocked the door, and they came in, and they're on there. They're watching TV. They're saying, "Hey, we need some breakfast. Hey, we need some health care. Would you get us health care? We need you to get us some health care." Just all these stupid things. That's exactly what we have here. I like what Trump said, but I've heard a lot of other people say it before him. Yes, you are welcome here. It's a big country. Sure. We have a front door.
Yeah.
Come in the front door because we cannot help you or know who you are if you don't. And they've already thwarted one election day massacre. They found a guy who was here who came up through the southern border and from Afghanistan, and he had plans, and they found it out, and that he was going to open up on crowds. I'm sure there's a lot of that. I'm afraid that there's some of that we don't know about. I'm afraid of there's election interference, things that are coming up on that day. It's got a lot of us scared. So no, we've got to start saying no. And here's just one piece of it to say no. No, we're not going to offer Medicare.
So Proposition 35, if we say no, it doesn't even come into effect till 2027, because what this is something that was passed, and we fund $2 to $5 billion for these Planned Parenthood, these people with immigration that they try to help out. And what saying yes would do was make this into law permanently forever.
Right.
And so no would actually stop it when the bill is up in 2027.
Yeah.
Your taxes would actually go down in 2027.
Great.
So
it needs to. And this isn't racism or anything like that. This is just simply saying, come in the front door. I don't care who you are. Come in the front door. I love being in America. I was born in America. Other people like Melania Trump and Elon Musk, we're not born here, and they came legally, made their way into this country, and have been a real benefit for this country.
Yeah, definitely. And last but not least, Proposition 36, we were saying yes, and in 2014 they passed it's not a felony when you steal under $950. And what we have seen is, even though it's a misdemeanor and it is technically not legal to steal anything, nobody gets persecuted or prosecuted for it. So what this does is now it's a felony for that and for other drug charges.
As it should be.
As it should be. I shouldn't be allowed to steal up to $900 and not be prosecuted for it.
My goodness, when I was young, like a lot of these kids are doing it, if I stole $50, I'd go to juvenile hall. It was just that simple. And to let them get away with it, and we've defunded the police, and so they're giving these false stats about you juvenile crime being down. It's not down. They're just not prosecuting because of laws like this.
Yeah, and I mean, if I went out there to a different store 5 days for the first week of the month, I wouldn't have to work the rest of the time because, and then what that does is that drives inflation, it drives costs up. So every single person who goes into a store now not only has to pay for their product, it has to pay for what's being stole too, because they up the prices to cover that.
Look how many stores have closed down.
Yes.
Even in our town, we have like 3 drugstores that have closed down. It's all because of theft.
Yeah.
Because there's no prosecution of it, because they're not going to do anything about it because it's under $950. And so it's got to stop. So I think that's just part of restoring some order in our country. And we're not doing our kids any favors by letting him get away with this. They need to know that they can't do it. Otherwise, they're just going to do it again and again and again, because that's just the way people are. And we got to help them.
And this would also help safety.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many cases where people are going, they're stealing little things, and then somebody dies because they don't want to get caught, even though it's a $20 product.
Yeah.
And so people die, or what happens if your kids are in the store and there's a guy with a gun that goes and steals $50 worth of stuff? I mean, it's a safety
so much
issue.
Yeah.
So vote yes on Prop 36
Yeah.
for that, and that's
That's
everything for today.
Yeah. Now, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next week.